What's the good word, everybody? It's your boy DKB here, kicking off. Actually, I'm extremely early, right? For one, we're gonna get into our first mock draft of the year. We haven't even reached the off season. Normally, I don't even get into mock drafts until we're like a month away from, maybe a month and a half, 2 months away from the actual draft occurring. So, extremely early. I do want to preface this by saying this isn't this isn't the natural exercise of a mock draft, right? I really want to talk through the elements of what is the best way to go about building this team, right? So obviously we're going to have our, BPA best player available stuff. We're going to have the guys that we just may already be in love with, but I really want to go through the scenarios and the ideas of taking a quarterback first versus trying to build out the team, maybe even waiting until the second round if there's somebody you like there when it comes to trying to build out this draft. This is a very nuanced conversation, right? And I think is one that we haven't spent enough time discussing. Everybody just kind of has these knee-jerk reactions to seeing how Justin Fields has played, kind of seeing how evaluating the roster under Tyrod Taylor has gone, and understanding that we can get Tyrod Taylor's level of play, by the way, right, is commendable, is acceptable, but it's nothing that's going to get us deep into the playoffs, right? It's just for what it sounds like. He's a player that allows you to evaluate the talent on the roster, maybe even get one or two guys to play above what you thought they looked like under the previous person, in this case, Justin Fields. So it's not a high bar to have to cross, but it's definitely something for us to be considerate of, right? So I there's a couple of things I wanted to chat about today, actually, but it'll probably come up as we go through this stream, right? So let's go ahead and get things cracking with loading up our mock draft simulator. I don't have a personal favorite, right? But I do like using PFF for these exercises because they do offer a lot of stuff up front. Also, I happen to watch like the NFL Stock Exchange podcast, and I think between what I hear from Connor Rogers and then, of course, what I hear from Trevor Sikkema, he tends to keep this stuff up to date pretty accurately. With what I believe would be the consensus league wide expectations for how these guys fall talent wise, right? So I like them the most so far. Otherwise, I tend to like to use what was my go-to NFL Draft Buzz, right? Once it gets closer or deeper in the offseason anyways. But we, of course, are going to be rocking with our New York Jets. And I believe they also keep their what am I trying to say? Draft order up to date, right? So we should be picking fourth as seen here, but then we should also be picking, I think, 28th is where the Colts are currently ranked right now from a draft perspective. So we're going to do our 2 rounds. I'm not doing any trades, right? So I don't mind this. I don't mind the draft picks coming in hot and heavy here. So before we kick this off, right, just kind of taking a look, does it give us the big board right away? And then let's confirm picks, right? So we're looking at fourth overall, 28th, 36th, and 45. So we have 4 picks in the top 50. This should give us a ton of, I don't want to say blue chip players, right? But you should be able to land one blue chip prospect, and then everybody else should be high level contributors, which is the mindset going into this thing, right? Now, yeah, they're not giving me a big board to start off with, but let's see how the cards fell for us. So Arvell Reese is off the board. I think that was going to be one of the prime considerations here. Caleb Downs, talked about him. He was recently mocked to us. It was one of the first players I was really aware of in terms of potential blue chip guys in this upcoming draft. But we're not at that stage of our rebuild, right? And this is part of what this conversation goes into. So it's kind of nice that we don't even have to have that discussion already, but we do see that the Saints decide to forego Tyler Shough, and they're going to go the route of drafting another quarterback, and they pick up Mendoza. So now the conversation for us gets that much harder right out of the gate, right? Now, I don't know where everybody lands, of course, but I think when you just look at the general concept of a lot of this quarterback class, Fernando Mendoza is the throwback pocket passer guy with enough mobility to maybe get you some plays outside of the pocket. Then when you want to talk about the remaining quarterbacks, we have Ty Simpson, and he's kind of more of a dual threat than what Fernando Mendoza is, but he's fresh, right? He's raw. He's been sitting behind guys for a couple of years. He's just now getting his shot, and it looks really, really good, I would say, for the most part. But there's still going to be a lot of drawbacks. There's still going to be a lot of things you have to consider. And with this draft class as a whole, from my understanding, from the quarterback perspective, a lot of these quarterbacks are really just starting to hit their stride and or just really starting to get their consistent taste of starting experience. And there's a lot of these names that might even end up going back, right? Lenore Sellers, he's been getting tagged to left, right, and center with that offensive line, just letting anybody through. Garrett Nussmeier, he seems like he's going to return. John Mateer, he was probably a guy that a lot of people liked early on, and then he ended up dealing with the wrist surgery, whatever it was that he ended up suffering, and things look like they've fallen off a cliff, right? Then you have all these other guys, Drew Allar, him going through injury, Carson Beck, right? He's kind of having a resurgence. He doesn't look good. A lot of these guys aren't going to apply to us, right? And I don't think personally I'm going to be overdrafting anybody like a Trinidad Chambliss, which at least in my Discord, I know a lot of people have a strong affinity for. So this is going to get interesting pretty quick for us, right? Now, let's go ahead and take a look at everybody in general, and let's see what we have on the table and where these discussions are really going to start kicking off. So top ranked player, Ruben Bain Jr. Now, I think off the top of my head, just knowing the fan base, people are going to riot if we pick a defensive player first. And what's good, Todd? Appreciate you coming through, my guy. Appreciate all of you kicking it, by the way. 15 of us in here so far. Feel free to drop the comments. I will actually drop a link if anybody wants to jump on as well. And kind of as we talk through this process, maybe you want to jump on and it's easier to, verbally explain it as opposed to anything else. But back on topic here. Going defense, no matter who it is kind of a complex scenario. I think we've seen, if we want to take it from the top, one, we don't know if Steve Wilks is going to survive the season or not, right? I think whenever you have a season this bad, that somebody's head has to roll, right? That's just kind of the nature of the game. People have been asking me to talk about Tanner Engstrand, and I think over the weekend I'm going to work on a video kind of dropping my thoughts about the two coordinators as well. I already talked about Wilks, but more specifically Engstrand. I just think Engstrand has the higher upside. He has shown and demonstrated enough this season, just at a high level, to show that with the proper quarterback, his offense can look like a modern day NFL offense. And even furthermore, potentially has the ability to look like a top 10 unit, right? Steve Wilks hasn't really shown us that. I think he's done a great job of finally being able to string together some consistent games and stuff, but you can definitely argue there's a talent issue here where he doesn't have the caliber of players or even the type of players that he needs for a scheme. But there's also failures to me where as a secondary coach, one that's done extremely well as a position coach and at previous stops as a DC, he's looked like he had guys in the secondary perform above expectations. He hasn't delivered those same results with us. For as much as anybody wants to hate Tony Adams, he's a ball of clay when it comes to athleticism. You should be able to have better performances or at least something in line with what we saw with Robert Saleh. You have Malachi Moore, extremely heady, right? The mental component of his game was something that was highly applauded. And I think you see it where he gets pretty close to being able to help force some turnovers, which will be the first of our season. But everybody's pressing, right? Everybody's stressed, agitated, and kind of in this hyperbolic mindset of, I got to be the one to make the play by any means necessary. And we've given up some very easy opportunities for picks. This is something where he should be able to calm and slow the game down for everybody in this secondary, right? Things should be I don't want to say extremely simple, but I quote this all the time. When you look at the Chargers and what Harbaugh did just going into year one, and who's the DC over there? I think is it Jesse Minter? I think off the top of my head, if I'm thinking correctly, they simplified that defense so much to where when you look at it on the all 22, you can say, hey, these guys aren't really doing anything crazy. There's no, true blitz schemes really that's occurring. Nothing fancy, creative, or innovative happening. But everybody was able to lock into their role and what they were asked to do so well that they ended up being one of the if not the top ranked passing defense, right? That's something you could take away and learn from, right? Maybe you can't install the scheme the way that you envision it in year one. Most people rarely do because the situation is so bad. But this is where I think Aaron Glenn and the coaching staff kind of fell off from their early messaging of, we don't worry about scheme so much as what is the talent that's available to us and how do we make the most of that, right? So Steve Wilks, I don't even know if he remains, which means who ends up being the new DC, what kind of scheme do they want to run? Starting up front, is it going to be a 3-4 versus 4-3? Ruben Bain is one of those guys that I think is going to end up getting the tag, not as generational, but as scheme transcendent. And so it won't matter necessarily if you're putting him in a 3-4 versus a 4-3. I think off the top of my head, he's probably more of a 4-3 guy. But he's someone that has a higher ceiling than a Will McDonald or a Jermaine Johnson in terms of the totality of his game as being a pass rusher and then also being able to impact the run game. So we'll see. He needs to be heavily considered here, right? But again, anybody that we pick on defense, there's going to be a huge question as to what are we doing? The offense needs as much possible support as it can get. And I can't argue that one simple fact, right? Charles, appreciate you coming through, checking things out with us while we're here. Todd, I'm not sure about any coaching changes happened. The defense lost Austin Williams, so the DC is doing more with less. And offensively, you need a quarterback to evaluate. You could say no changes. I would make an argument. I'm not over the hills about Steve Wilks. I wasn't even over the hills when we hired him, but I understood the thought process of bringing in this wealth of experience. Again, I'll continue to quote this out because it was an excellent point from NJ Lauren. Always commenting on the videos, always great thought processes. He's never really been in a place long enough to build a defense, right? So now if you're Aaron Glenn, you're having to rely on the fact that maybe he's a better play caller when he has the necessary talent around him. Two, what does his vision of a defense look like, right? And how can you shape that? And is it something that you can take another guy to plug him in and build on and build off of? Or ultimately, will you end up rearranging the whole thing, right? Like I'm trying to think, I can't remember the name of the linebacker coach who took over for Aaron Glenn when he went to the Detroit Lions, but it wasn't wholesale changes, right? Campbell's letting him go out there and do his thing, but it was built in a way that everybody agreed with the philosophy. Everybody was able to go in and start to put and add their own flavor onto it. I don't know if Steve Wilks will offer that same thing. Harlan, appreciate you coming through. You found me. I got to do a better job of probably announcing these things, but I figure I do it when I have the chance. People come through. We're going to kick it for the time that I'm available. We're going to call it a day. Now, for me, this conversation, when we want to look at the second name here, Peter Woods, a lot more simple. I think with the emergence of Harrison Phillips and definitely, I was going to say J. Tufele, but with Ja'Whaun Briggs, it seems a lot less urgent, right? I think you still want to find you another high quality interior player. I don't know if it needs to be a fourth overall, right? And Peter Woods, in one comparison that I saw, was mentioned in the same light as like Quentin Williams, right? As a guy that had tons of athleticism for his position, maybe needs to grow into that role a little bit more and also needs to find that perfect scheme fit of whether it's him being a read and react guy versus him being aggressive. One of the other points that was put out there as well is that when you look at the way that our defensive line plays, we also are looking at guys that are more of that read and react type caliber. And it doesn't lend itself to great football just visually, right? Because this is kind of the trap that like Leonard Williams fell into with us. He was an elite player during his tenure, or at the very least above average. But based on the stats, it didn't look like it, right? He didn't look like someone that was worthy of the, I don't know, I can't remember where we drafted him overall, but let's say top 10 pick that we spent on him. This would be the other level of concern. Now, how the team feels about that player is all that really matters, but the outside that's known to pad the stat sheet all over the place, and that's going to end up being a problem for the fans that have been for the stat sheet only high level of what's going on. Let me see here. Hold on. I think I got a bit of. Remember in year one, Jets fans to defense play better. Yeah, no, I think that's a good point as well. I'm not tight Charles London coach, right? I think sometimes you just need to see how a guy can really have to put that on Charles London. But in the same token, I don't want to just give him a pass either, right? I think if Taylor looks decent enough as the rest of the season continues, then there's an argument to be said, keep him, see how things go. But I'm also all for, if you think there's an upgrade out there that you can get, go and get that guy, right? I know we looked at some people last year when Aaron Glenn was assembling this roster, or this last offseason anyways. And ultimately we got spurned, and it was because we're looking the way that we essentially look now, right? So it'd be hard pressed for me to think we're just going to go out there and find an easy upgrade. And also, we got to be honest with ourselves. These true quarterback gurus are so few and far in between. It's very hard to find. You might not even have one in each division. So we'll see, but good points. People in the chat, don't forget the like button. Appreciate you guys as always. You guys have been killing it. I'm getting closer and closer to 3K here for the channel. I'm just happy we can chop it up like this, right? This is what it's been all about since the beginning for me, especially being on the West Coast. I don't have a lot of Jets fans I could readily tap into, and we can, get our grief out with. Charles, if our quarterback that we want is not there, should we forfeit the number 4 pick and trade out the stock up for next year where there are quarterbacks that we want? I've heard this discussion a lot too. I'm not a fan of waiting, right? There's a lot that could happen, right? These guys could get injured. These guys could fall off a cliff somehow. You talk about staff changes and stuff. If there's a guy that you really believe in, I feel like you go after him. I don't care right now, just based on what I know, to go out there and trade up for any of these quarterbacks, but I can make an argument for why you would want to stay at 4 and get the guy that you have the most faith in. If we do that, though, that means that I'm not looking at 2027 as I need to get a quarterback now. I want to build around the guy that I said I had the faith in, and I want to give him every reason possible to succeed. So now I'm looking at going and getting a Ryan Williams or whoever it is out there that we love in terms of these weapons and tight ends and et cetera, that we can go and try to help boost things up for us. Just could get a good quarterback on day 3. That's a good point. You can get them day 2 as well, right? There's a lot of guys from a scheme perspective that can walk in and have some year 1 success. I don't know what that ultimately means in terms of win-loss guys, but you look at kind of your program players, if you will, like a Kyler Murray, like a Tua Tagovailoa, guys that maybe can't exceed expectations or even look like legitimate options outside of the environment that was created and crafted for them. But that's what you want to do with any quarterback anyways, right? It just so happens to help if you have a Josh Allen that can kind of transcend a lot of the issues that may come up. And that's one of the final pieces here when it comes to this quarterback discussion for me is, I don't know if you necessarily have that type right out the gate, right? You have guys that have a couple of traits, a few good traits, but you don't have anybody that's just this walking behemoth out there, right? Um, and so I don't know. Again, nuanced conversation. We'll have to see. Need day two picks to get supporting players. Same with day one picks. Yeah, for sure. So I think this conversation for me, looking at the board, right? Ruben Bain Jr. definitely up for discussion. Jordan Tyson definitely up for discussion with me. Jeremiah Love, I think you can't discount the history of Aaron Glenn and Tanner Engstrand and what they decided on doing when they drafted someone like Jahmyr Gibbs. Based on them, I believe already having David Montgomery, who looked really, really good. And you still have to believe that they probably feel strongly about like Braylon Allen. And we've already heard multiple times how they want to include Isaiah Davis more. But if you feel this strongly about the group, you don't need to spend this caliber of a pick to try to add and increase the weapons in the backfield. So I'm not going Jeremiah Love. I think for me, the conversation right now goes to which quarterback do you prefer? Jordan Tyson, how high do you rank him, right? What do you think his ceiling is? Can he be wide receiver one potential? Can you get kind of a AJ Brown and why am I blanking on the other name? Devontae Smith type situation there, right? Can you get a T. Higgins, Jamar Chase type vibe going? And then, of course, everybody else falling into the roles behind that looks even better, right? Having Adonai Mitchell drop, Arian Smith drop, John Mechie being essentially your starting slot receiver. If you want to kind of have this throwback Bears vibe, if you will, the Monsters of Midway, then you can talk about all of them doing that. But I think for me, I would prefer for us. I'm sick to my stomach. Let me think. Quarterbacks who would potentially be available in the later rounds that we could really take advantage of. And in this 2 round, I don't think you're going to find somebody, right? Like we're going to see Ty Simpson go here pretty soon. We're going to see Dante Moore go here. Garrett Nussmeier, I'm not seriously considering because I believe he goes back to school. Lenore Sellers is going back to school. Jaden Mayava, I think, probably goes out. John Mateer, you can argue, goes back to school. And I think Sam Leavitt goes back. But none of these guys are going to be like round 1 caliber guys, right? So we essentially need to pick one of Simpson, Moore. Yeah, one of either Simpson or Moore now. Or we end up literally having to wait till like the 2nd to 3rd round to try to find somebody else that makes sense. And at least based on the rankings, the value isn't going to be great, right? And I don't want to do trades in this particular scenario because also PFF forces you to kind of put together your own trade packages and they try to make it make sense and all that kind of stuff. But that leads down having to go into what the trade compensation packages look like and totaling up points and all this kind of stuff. So if it's me, I think this is where you need to decide. And again, who do you really love as a quarterback at this point in time, 4th overall, who offers the best skill set, right? Now, for me, Ty Simpson is a guy from a story standpoint I really love, right? Obviously, you would have loved for him to be able to beat out some of the guys that have already went to the NFL, but he sat 2 years. He's learned how to grow within a program, which to me is extremely important because that is exactly what Aaron Glenn is trying to do. He's trying to build a foundation. He's trying to build a program where you can interchange these pieces and the fall off isn't that steep because everybody is built to operate at a high level within this program. So he's already going to come in with that understanding of how do you go about work? How do you go about being able to pull all of these traits and breaking down game film and all of these different things that with him riding the bench, he's been able to learn about. He hasn't played a ton, which is going to be the huge drawback, and he doesn't offer an overwhelming trait like arm strength or even, getting the ball out of his hands extremely fast or even the mobility, but that's going to be a lot of quarterbacks in this class. This is the guy that I think off the top of my head so far, offers the most of that kind of star mentality or star trait acronym that Aaron Glenn has already pointed at when it comes to being strong, tough, aggressive, resilient, just based on the story. But I also think it's hard to pass up Dante Moore, right? There's a guy, he's 20 years old, so you're getting the advantage of the immense youth with him. Obviously, looks like he's had a good grade. I don't rely heavily on that stuff when it comes to PFF, but it gives you some kind of visualization, right? He's at a 90.3. What's Ty Simpson at? 83.5. So you're comparing both of these two, you would assume Dante Moore's better. I also think Dante Moore has done better against some of the tougher competition off of the top of my head. Listen to a lot of these podcasts and what we've seen with Ty Simpson. But I just really like something about his game. I think if I had to make a choice right now, though, I don't think the fall off is significantly different between Ty Simpson and Dante Moore. I think the way that they play the game is going to be different, right? Harlan, you bring up a good point too. I have heard a lot of the rumors about him potentially trying to go back to school and continue that final season. When you play your way, though, into being like a top 5 pick, even if you can't be the guy at number 1, though, that kind of money versus the NIL stuff is different. And we'll get a taste of Dante Moore's mindset here if he does decide to go back and try to chase a chip. Then we understand how important winning is to him. But we can't discount again what winning a chip at college would mean versus what it means to have some of this life-changing money as a top 5 pick, and all the expectation, all that kind of stuff that's going to come with it. So we'll see. I think there's at least a 50-50 chance of either one, though. When we talk about guys like Nussmeier and stuff that I mentioned, I think it's more likely than not that they go back, which is why I would kind of exclude them. Yeah, Simpson definitely needs more experience. No trade packages to move up. Yeah, I'm not even entertaining that thought process. I hate the idea of packaging all these picks we got for, again, someone that's not considered an X factor at their position, if you will. I like the kid from Vanderbilt. I assume we're talking quarterback, right? Who are you mentioning? Diego Pavia. He's small, though, right? I'm pretty sure I remember Connor Rogers talking a little bit about him. He's like a smaller dude that, 6'2", 207, has been in school for a while. No trade ups, only trade downs to fill the holes. Yeah, for sure. And I'll definitely end up in a future mock draft running into a scenario where we do look at trade down attempts. I feel like I've been saying trade down for like the last 3, 4, 5 years. So I hate to kind of continue that trend, but I mean, when you finish at the top, and especially when you're not going quarterback, or it's not a quarterback friendly draft for you at the top, it just feels like it makes the most sense, right? Especially when you have all these needs. And again, we're working through a rebuild, so we knew that there was going to be a need to try to increase the war chest again somehow, but we'll see. Funny. Danger Zone, what's good, my guy? I got to link up with him again. I got him and Gunny on my list to try to find time for again. Moore and Simpson are still raw. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of raw players in this draft. By the time you look at whoever ends up being the final 5 guys that end up confirming they're going to the draft, I'm guaranteeing like 80% of them are going to be guys that have under 20 starts or something like that within their college career so far. Tough. Okay, so I think if I'm rolling here, right, it's going to be either Ty Simpson, Dante Moore, or Ruben Bain for me. The unfortunate part is I think quarterbacks for a value perspective is going to fall off a cliff if we don't select one now. And there's other wide receivers that aren't going to be as skilled as a Jordan Tyson or as a Carnell Tate with that bigger body size, which is what I really want to target this year, that I still feel like you can roll the dice on and at least significantly increase the level of competition going into next year and have a completely different kind of story. Ruben Bain, you're not going to luck your way into again, right? And I think that we've seen enough discussions around having Michael Clemens be our third designated pass rusher that's coming in, and how he's getting absolutely murked when it comes to a lot of these RPOs, and really anytime he needs to make a decision on getting into the backfield to get after one of these guys. I think he has a bad case of PTSD or something. I'm not sure what the fall off was. I know rookie year, he was absolutely annihilating tight ends, which is what he was mostly getting blocked up against. But now that he's been sliding in a little bit more and kind of hitting the tackles outside shoulder and stuff, he just doesn't have the mental problem. It's like almost watching Justin Fields play edge rusher, I think, in many cases with him. When you go back and essentially have Will McDonald become your new Bryce Huff, and then you're talking about Ruben Bain Jr. and Jermaine Johnson, I think that is much more appealing to me. The question would be in this mock draft, because I feel like if I don't walk away with the quarterback, I'll be skewered, right? Who would we end up trying to get in the second round? Because I feel like it's also going to have to be that pick 36, right? Who realistically will be there that we feel comfortable with? And I feel like it would either end up being a discussion between Jaden Maiava here, or it's going to be a discussion between John Mateer. It's the only two guys. I feel like both of them are technically going to be reaches. And you still need to roll the dice and try to get a young guy that's going to be in here at some point. But I haven't invested enough time really looking at this quarterback draft class outside of the top name or two to really say that I would feel comfortable if I was doing like a longer draft of who I would be trying to target here, right? I know, like, who is it? What's the name of my guy in the chat? It's not this guy always shouts out Drew Allar. Tony the GM. I got to start finding times where I'm doing this and he's on these live streams too. Tony the GM, for all my people, I don't know how often he comments on any other Jets content creators videos, but he rides for Drew Allar to death. It's like a generational type guy, right? I know he's pointed out like 2 or 3 players, but I think this is tough. I'm not as worried about not getting a wide receiver as I am about what is the quarterback that I'm going to try to put in place that if we pick somebody in the first 3 rounds, we almost still have to assume that they're going to see the field, right? Not because of whoever ends up being our bridge quarterback or whether we keep Justin Fields or anything. We know how Woody Johnson is, and we know the pressure that's going to be there on one facet or another. We need to understand this guy is going to see the field. And so how comfortable are we with the skill set that they're offering? And if I had to put my money on it, I would go with some of the traits of someone like Jaden Maiava over anything else, and at least kind of the resurgence, I guess, if you want to call it that USC is having. I just don't know if that's really where I would want to go, right? I think that's what we might have to do. I'm thinking the benefit of getting someone like Ruben Bain Jr. outweighs potentially what year one is going to look like for one of these quarterbacks. And it's the long game anyways. You love to see someone come out and look like a star or, have that Jackson Dart type vibe. But I don't know if this is the draft class and if we're the situation that necessarily is going to happen with. I think more comes out if he plays great in the playoffs, but whether or not. Yeah, I mean, that's the hope, right? I'd rather see him here than not. At the worst case, it pushes guys like Arvell Reese potentially down and gives us a better shot at a Mendoza if that's really who we love, or Simpson Moore, whoever it is we fall in love with. If not, it's just going to give us better variation of options to pick from. Stats to play great too. Can he get DeCorian Moore back in his arsenal? Yeah, it's a good question. There's a lot going on with Oregon that they need to figure out. Second or third, 6 foot. Yeah, so I'm a Rutgers guy. So Jersey Jet through and through. I look, trust me, Ian Strong is a guy I'm well aware of. I also really love our quarterback that's out there. But he's going to be a clear day 3 pick, I would imagine, unless he becomes a late riser. If you don't get Tyson, there's always Lemon Tate in Boston. Yeah, New York kid. Does it sway you to think that pick number 4 is guaranteed 44 million? No, not really. Like it not really. I mean, the contract is what the contract is going to be. Like I don't want to give that money to like a Jeremiah Love, for example. He's going to easily be probably like top 5 at his position or whatever. But when it comes to the quarterback or the edge player or wide receiver, if we feel like they're that guy, then they were going to be worth that money anyways. He's just as good as Boston. Look at his tape. You know, Ian Strong is one of those guys. I can't wait till I can actually start getting into these breakdowns. And I think I'm going to do it much earlier this year. I think I'm going to wait until maybe a week or two after, college playoffs and all that stuff wraps up. And then I'm going to start firing all of these off. Can you double dip in 2026 knowing your 2025 quarterback is making that much? I mean, we're in a bad situation either way, right? Paying Aaron Rodgers, paying Justin Fields, whether we keep him or let him go. For me, it's just a matter of conviction. If you feel like this is your guy, and again, what I mean by conviction is you look at the 2027 draft class and you're not even remotely concerned about those quarterbacks. You're bought in on trying to make sure that you finish building out the environment for whoever you drafted in 2026. If you feel like 2026 and Mendoza, Simpson, or Moore is really that guy for you, 2027 is a full focus on just building out the rest of the roster with all of these blue chip first round guys, then you make that happen. If you feel like you aren't that convinced that any of these guys could be the long-term answer for you, then you pick them where you pick them. I don't think number 4 is going to be the right spot to do it. And then you also take your gamble in 2027. But I hate the idea of kind of like having that back-to-back, top first round. I'm just continuing to roll the dice year after year after year. I think there's definitely a discussion for that because you need to be able to hit on a quarterback, but it's just such a bad use of resources. You should fill many positions. Yeah, I mean, ideally, that's the way to go, right? Wild Wave was cracking. Nobody yet. We've been kind of talking through the thought process here of where we want to go. Trade that pick. Maybe you can get off. Yeah, I'm sure I can. I'm going to do it on I think Draft Buzz is the one I like because they actually show you what the trade packages are going to be. And then maybe I can take that same concept and bring it over here to PFF at some point. But yeah, I don't like doing it here because you have to manually kind of piece together the packages and try to make them make sense. And I don't want to take advantage or be taken advantage of in that situation. So I'm going to stall that out for a different mock draft that we actually do. I don't think more is coming out. Otherwise, I think that's who the Jets want. I think we slow play it this year and fill the roster. I mean, maybe. If they do, it's been very quiet on that front. We've been going out to visit Mendoza, I feel like every couple of weeks, it feels like. So I feel like that's really kind of who they're honing in on, but we'll see. With the 4th pick, the New York Jets slide to 14 and take Kenyon Sadiq. I feel like I would hate that. I feel like I would hate to pick a tight end in the first round for some reason. Motivation and character problems. Yeah, see, that's not a good sign either. If you could just throw something like that out. Mendoza, if we can get him. If not, Arvell Reese. Yeah, I think those are like if they're available, I would imagine those are the 2 most mocked players to the Jets. Trade down, get a guy in the second. Really, I love Sadiq's game. Yeah, like as him as a player, I'm sure he's balling out. From what I understand, he's kind of a 1-year wonder right now. But you love the physical traits, right? I could see him being like a 9.99 guy for the RAS score or something. But Yeah, I'm not investing in a tight end in round one. So I think for me, I've kind of talked myself out of quarterback, or and it wouldn't happen here because again, I'm not doing trade, but I would potentially consider trying to trade up to get one of these guys with the second first rounder. That will potentially make me a little more comfortable. But I think here, when it comes to building the team, there's not going to be another offensive player not named Jordan Tyson or like Carnell Tate, technically, I guess, that I would feel comfortable with. And I have my sights on somebody with that 28th pick that I really like. The Brass also went to see more against Rutgers. Ooh. Yeah, I got to check that out. I don't even remember seeing any content creators talking about that one. I got to peep that. I think honestly, I'm going Ruben Bain Jr. Jordan Tyson, I think, would be preferred to me over Carnell Tate right now, but I also really love me some Brian Hartline coached guys. Yeah, I think this discussion is between Ruben Bain or one of the wide receivers for me right now. And we find somebody in the second round. If we take a wide receiver with the second first round pick, our wide receiver room will be low. Yeah, like as it stands right now, the wide receiver room really already looks good. I just want to create the best possible competition for that number 2 spot. I don't just want to entrust it to Adonai Mitchell unless he just goes off for multiple like 75 plus yard games and a couple multiple TD games or something in there. But if it's not that, I don't think you go in and just clearly say, yeah, I feel good about this guy having the off season to figure things out with us, and we'll give him the spot. Make it be him versus one of these rookies who also, again, are still going to need to try to beat out John Mechie and Arian Smith going into year 2. Ruben Bain Jr. is going to be. It's an old tweet. Then again, the game was a while ago. Yeah, if you aren't, trust me, this isn't free promo or advertisement. If you aren't in the Discord, just look at any of my last videos in the description. There's the link in there. Shoot me the stuff because trust me, I research New York Jets stuff like a madman when I'm looking at content to talk about. So I will find it, and I'm sure I'll probably find a lot more. Right, Ruben Bain, I'm on board. Okay, so not crazy. Good shit. They got a look at the younger wide receiver KG Diff, and he's a 6'5". Oh, and he's 6'5" with a crazy catch radius. Ooh. Okay. AD needs time with one quarterback thrown to him constantly the rest of the year to see. Yeah. It's going to be hard pressed for him to really do anything, though, that makes me say, yeah, wide receiver 2 locked in. I feel extremely confident, right? Let's go. I'm going to give myself 30 seconds here to see if I can talk myself out of Ruben Bain. If any of these wide receivers, Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, everybody included, for whatever reason, can't necessarily win the role from Adonai Mitchell, or let's say Arian Smith takes a crazy leap next year, we're talking about them being wide receiver 4 at best, and then working their way up. And I'm sure we'll see them going into year 2, etc. Or you'll find a way to get your 4th overall guy on the field. But I think the way that we've been able to build up the depth in the wide receiver room and still loving options late round 1, early round 2. Yeah, I'm going Ruben Bain, guys. I can't keep looking at Michael Clemens out here. And we know that there's going to be emphasis on the trenches. We're going to take Ruben Bain Jr. We're going to overhaul the edge room. We're going to push Michael Clemens down, or we're going to get him off the roster. And we're going to roll out Ruben Bain with Jermaine Johnson. And we're going to allow Will McDonald to only focus on pass rush while we try to figure out how we're going to build leads to let him go crazy on these guys next year. Ruben Bain's going to be the pick for us. And just like clockwork, of course, Simpson and Moore fly off the board immediately. Jesus Christ. Okay, let's take a look at what happens. So we go Ruben Bain Jr. Ty Simpson goes to the Raiders. They're not happy with Geno. The Browns invested so much in quarterback this offseason. You're talking about a 3rd and 5th round pick, but it's so hard for me not to imagine, one, that Shedeur creates some good vibes within that organization, and 2, that if you're the GM, Andrew Berry, you're not looked at sideways by saying we might take another guy here who's also not like a certified quarterback in 32 teams' eyes. Bain is good, but Reese is better. That's who I want behind Mendoza, unless they like next year's quarterback draft class with the free agent quarterback to get there. Yeah, for sure. I think Ruben Bain is definitely a notch below. So actually, I'll preface it like this, right? It's not like I really looked at either of these guys like that, but Arvell Reese is playing the role of a linebacker that also happens to have significant pass rush reps, and he looks really, really good doing it, right? So I think the thought process is you kind of flip that perspective when he gets into the league. Reese becomes more of a pass rusher, and then he moonlights at linebacker and being able to play in the open field and stuff. Whereas Ruben Bain, maybe he doesn't look as good passing a rusher and stuff, but he has more of the natural instincts and feel, and he still has a pretty good ceiling that's out there, right? So I would still be comfortable with being able to snatch him, at least at this point in time. Jets will end up at number 2 in the draft. Yeah, I don't know if we'll get there because, to be honest, it's a lot of bad-looking teams right now, which is crazy. But cornerback Tyson goes to the Bengals. They finally get a T. Higgins alternative. Jeremiah Love to the Cardinals is crazy. I know the Cowboys will probably jump for joy to get their hands on him. Peter Woods to the Dolphins. Kendrick Falk, Mansour Delane. Carnell Tate to the Chiefs is crazy. Sonny Styles. I don't understand why I keep seeing Sonny Styles to 4 with us either. I gotta check him out at some point too. Makai Lemon. I wouldn't have considered Lemon, by the way, at 4 just because it feels like he's close to like a Garrett Wilson type. And you like a little bit more of a different kind of mix in that room. TJ Parker, Caleb Banks, Kenyon Sadiq goes 20 to the Bucks. So they kind of get their OJ Howard 2.0 experiment. Avion Terrell, Denzel Boston, Romello Heights, Spencer Fano. Okay, so we still have some wide receivers here, right? Let's just look at the board here. Hold on. Jets would mess up a wet dream like hey, it'd be like that. I don't know though. I think Muji has done a pretty damn good job of being able to fill a lot of what we felt really bad about over the course of the season. So if we think about the jump in evaluating pro free agency that he might be able to apply to the scouting ranks as well, I get pretty excited for this offseason and this draft and how he might try to maneuver and what he'll do. Especially considering I think day 3 will look a lot better for him in terms of how he approaches that. Francis Mauigoa, we don't need a tackle, but I've also heard the conversation about taking him and converting him to guard. We need to see what we're going to do with Simpson. We need to figure out if we're going to try to bring AVT back and just hopes he's healthy. Also, center. It's a lot of stuff on the interior that could play out. I still think that we're keeping 1 or 2 of the top guys, being AVT or Simpson, or potentially bringing back a whole trio. But I don't think I'm ready to talk about like taking a guard this early. The only reason I talk about it now is just because I know this guard class overall, people don't feel extremely high on. And Maui Goa brings some pretty good traits. Also, by the way, this is the brother to Kiko Maui Goa, the linebacker that we drafted. So there's going to be a connection there. Who's the top safety in the draft? Draft him in the second round. Moore is really good. I hate Adams. So the top guy was Caleb Downs, and he went second overall. And it looks like the next best guy, I believe, is AJ Halsey. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, we really could use any type of safety, so it's not much of a conversation. It's just whether we feel like the value lines up. Feeling confident with Mooj in his scouting department to overproduce with good selection. Yeah, I mean, it looked like some bumps and bruises early on, but I think he's really found a way to correct and address whatever his process is. Let Muji cook. Amen. Bring back Simpson. AVT could get cheap because of the injury. Yeah, I'd assume it looked like a big contract, but it's going to be based on a lot of like escalators and stuff like that to give him like some bonuses throughout the year. Put Tippmann as centers and Myers as backup. So we have Francis Mauigoa, Caden Proctor, Kisei Concepcion is the next guy here. Again, I would prefer some size. So the name that comes to mind to me is Chris Bell. He reminds me a lot of kind of like a Savion Williams type of guy from last year, but he is a much better receiver stepping into the league. We would also need to start considering, I know our trio of cornerbacks have looked really, really good so far, but we do need to try to find a playmaker, right? We desperately need guys that can get the ball back in the offense's hands. Colton Hood, as of right now, I haven't looked at any DB, so I don't really know what what's the background of a lot of these guys off the top of my head per se like that. But I don't think I would go cornerback this high, but we can't knock it out the discussion based on the love affair we've seen with Muji and Aaron Glenn checking out so many guys over the course of this season. Kristen Miller, you start having these conversations again now if you want to talk about still needing to add to the room for that defensive line. We already added Ruben Bain. I'm not saying that negates us from picking a Kristen Miller here, but I feel like you almost also have to go offense at this point. So a lot of the values around tackles right now, and it's around, I guess, the defensive line still. Now, let's see. Let's look at the wide receivers real quick. Concepcion, Ian Strong, Elijah Sherratt, Chris Bell. And I know he's ranked late, or he's ranked later right now, but he's in serious consideration for me. I think it would be between him and Ian Strong for me right now. And I don't want to pick Ian Strong off the top of my head just because I am a Rutgers guy. I don't want this to be like a homer pick, but Muji is a genius. I want a wide receiver at least the size of Lazard. I'm not married to him needing to have a ton of size, but I do want a guy that has the 6'1", 6'2" frame, because ideally that's also going to come with them having the ability to, succeed on the boundary and stuff. And that's really what I'm looking for. What got me so hyped about Adonai Mitchell when we saw him that first game, even though he had all the drops, how easy it looked for him to be able to win his routes out there on an island, right? In addition to all the stuff we'll pull off, we're trying to put him in motion and stuff like that. Sadiq went off the board already. He went 20th to the Bucks. Will Jets get an interception? Yeah, I think you have to. If you go all 17 games with no interceptions, Steve Wilkes isn't coming back. Hey, DKBX Jets, everyone, hope all is well. Go Jets, like, subscribe to the channel. Great New York Jets content. Hey, appreciate you, Chris. Much love. CJ Allen is my pick here. Was that the cornerback? Is that the name that I saw? The linebacker. Got you. 6'1", 235. You love you a Georgia guy. Not you specifically, but I'm saying Georgia, the program. You really love anybody that you can get from defense over there. I'd rather wait for wide receiver next year with Cam Coleman and Jeremiah Smith coming out. If Jeremiah Smith keeps it up, these are the caliber of guys that it doesn't really matter too much who you have on the roster. You're taking a guy like that no matter what, right? So I don't think it matters who we would pick here necessarily. I could still see us going after someone like Jeremiah Smith if he falls or happens to be on the board wherever we're picking with one of those couple picks we have in the first round. I am comfortable because keep in mind we pick, 8 picks later. I am going to go wide receiver. Let me see who's at tight end real quick. Max Clare is the next best guy. I'm going between Ian Strong and Chris Bell here. And I think Ian Strong may be the better receiver out the gate. But I think Chris Bell has a close enough floor and a better upside based on physical gifts. I think I'm going to go with Chris Bell here. Think so. I missed one from you way back too. You said you think we trade Will McDonald. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if that's going to happen. Rookie punter has been really good this year. Special teams coach has been great. Do we bring back Folk? Yeah, I think you're right with Folk again. I think you do try to pick up a UDFA to try to give him that competition as well. I don't ever want to just gift anybody over 40 a job, but I think you do allow him to be the incumbent starter, and then you add somebody to him. Bring back Rutgers tight end 2. He's been a lifelong Jets fan. He's getting better. Yeah, I'm not like the story that's kind of wore off for me. I do think he's improved this year, which would have been the expectation based on the fact that I really like our O-line and tight end coach. But I think you still need to add to that room. I'm not just giving him the job based on him being marginally better this year. I don't think WMD fits what Glenn wants to do. He's like, yeah, that's why I'm saying you move him to pass rush specialist as the third guy coming off the edge, and you mitigate a lot of those issues. Yeah, I think I'm going Chris Bell here. He's going to be the guy that I feel like offers the best athleticism to compare to someone like Adonai Mitchell. And hopefully you would imagine Sean Jefferson can kind of mold that up pretty quickly. So Chris Bell is going to be our receiving pick here. We see Maui Goa go to the Eagles, Proctor, Concepcion to the Rams, Jennings Dunker's gone, Hood, Kristen Miller, Mason Thomas. Okay, so now things get fun and interesting, right? WDM's old. The Jets bring back Folk, better have a place kicker on the practice squad. Yeah, for sure. Now things get interesting. So the quarterback conversation has to be prevalent again. Nussmeier, Sellers, I don't think either of these two guys are going to realistically be here. And we can probably wait for Mayava with the second round pick because we're not waiting that much longer after this either. And I think that would be my expectation. I don't think I would pick a quarterback here. One, I don't know enough about all of these guys that in depth. Two, from what I do know, I would be picking one of these guys based on traits and not necessarily their game, right? Otherwise, we'd be talking about them going in the first round. So, are you going to pay him just to be a specialist rather than invest somewhere else? Yeah, to not have to worry about special teams, to not have to worry about some of these clutch kicks, to not have to worry about Inconsistency, I'm paying for that. What's he going to take? 5, 6 million, something like that, maybe. I'll pay for that for sure. Do the Jets still have the fat field goal kicker on the roster? Oh, the thicker kicker. No, I believe he got picked up like week 6 or 7 into the season or something, and he's on someone else's practice squad, I think. Jelani Woods, I think he's been a healthy scratch while they try to develop him within the system. I would imagine we probably see him next year on the roster and then see if he could really make some noise. Who wins Ohio State versus Michigan? I want to lean towards Michigan, but yeah, I want to lean towards Michigan, but we'll see. Special teams been special. Yeah, for sure. Don't mess with a good thing. Okay, so we're going to wait here. I think that's the decision I'm making right now. The next question would be, we addressed edge. We don't need any of that. You can start looking at who can be the next long-term piece with Ja'Whaun Briggs, if he can keep it up. I don't know if you want 2 big bodies in there at the same time like that. But if Amari Washington happens to have some plus athleticism, then you can get away with that as kind of having like your Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis type duo. I would say this is a good time to talk about like a CJ Allen, or now you start talking about maybe taking one of these tackles that can convert into playing guard for you. Buckeyes are going to smoke them. But I'm just in for a good game, right? I don't spend time watching a ton of college if I'm not looking at these players to do breakdowns on. But may the best team win. Do we play Cook the last 3 games? I want to tank for the top pick, but I want to see what Cook can do, though. Yeah, I know they've been talking about this plan that's in place for him, right? I think it would be smart to at least get a look. Again, you're not really playing for anything. And if you feel like you've given what are we going into, right? Like week 13. So if you give Tyrod Taylor like 3 or 4 more games, maybe you say, okay, we got a quarter's worth of games now with a consistent quarterback. We feel like we've gotten enough to be able to say, here's what we can build on. Then, yeah, turn the keys over to Cook, see if he can at least be in the backup quarterback conversation for you next year. I'm about 10 minutes behind, but as an LSU Jet fan, AJ Halsey is him. Oh, yeah, safety. Let's talk about safety again. Yeah. Now, what I can say, I've only heard about AJ Halsey. I haven't actually looked at him or anything like that. But I hear that his leadership is the closest thing that we've really seen since Jamal Adams has been back there. And this is a guy that I understand is a ball hawk. Like, even though he might not have 6, 7, 8 interceptions on the season, he knows how to be in the right place at the right time to at least make something happen. You're right. So I think he could be part of the conversation here too. We don't need to worry about any other. Yeah, we don't need to worry about any other wide receivers or edge players at this point. I can still wait on an interior guy based on what we've seen so far. So I think the conversation would be between either a cornerback, a safety, or taking CJ Allen for me. I honestly think we kind of reinvent that linebacker room too, though. And I wouldn't mind having CJ Allen kind of be at the forefront of that. Who's gone? I'm not considering Arvell Reese a true linebacker. It was Sonny Styles that went a little ways later. And then we haven't seen another one come off since. Anthony Hill Jr. is another one. Yeah, I think maybe CJ Allen. Yeah, I think it would be between CJ Allen and AJ Halsey for me right now. I think it would be between these two, right? And I lean towards CJ Allen because, again, I think there's actually the safety room is probably going to be turned over a lot too, right? But I think the impact of having someone like Allen in the second line is going to be more beneficial than potentially having someone like AJ Halsey when I can try to find me another instinctive safety in the third. Well, we don't have our third rounder right now, but on day 3. And basically, you'd be probably hoping for another like Malachi Moore type situation, a little better production. But if we don't get the linebacker now, the drop off is going to be crazier than what the drop off at safety is going to be. What free agent quarterback do we pick up for a 1-year transition? If we can pick up a quarterback in the draft, yeah, like I think honestly at this point, Jacoby Brissett has looked really, really good, right? Like I try to find a way to get him if possible, but if not, someone like Jameis Winston, because you're still going to be in evaluation mode, basically. The other piece is you want somebody that just as a pure passer could potentially really hold off a rookie as well and really give you an understanding of just how far they or just how ready they are for the league. Jameis Winston feels like that guy that really gives you that best advantage. Plus, he's turned into a really dope leader. I hear about the vibes and energy that he gives all the time. And I see all the funny clips from him. Love it. In Muji, we trust. Amen. Ian Strong in round 1. Fair enough. I love Thieneman. Thieneman. Who the hell is that? Oh, Dylan Thieneman, safety. Got you. Q's been nasty in Dallas. Yeah, it understanding you have a legitimate chance of winning now, I'm sure it gives you a shot in the arm. Sellers would be idiotic to declare. Yeah, it wouldn't look good for him. I still think he's firmly in the first round because people are going to look at him and say, hey, yeah, this is a guy that I can figure things out with. I'm trading Dallas's second to Philly for the pick we lost for Reddick and McKee. McKee is also a guy that I really like. I don't know if I want to trade a high pick for someone that hasn't proven a ton in regular season games, but I've liked what I've seen out of him for sure. Joe Theismann. Y'all are silly. I found the tweet for Jets brass going to Dante Moore's game. Bet. Yeah, run that. I'm going to need that. I got a mental note to go and look at it anyways. I think CJ Allen is going to be the guy here for me. We are going to reset this linebacker room. The good news is we didn't have to worry about any quarterbacks coming off. Now, the question is, who do we want to roll with? I think if we're reaching on one of these 3 guys: Jaden Mayava, John Mateer, Sam Leavitt. John Mateer, I would exclude. I don't want this Kyler Murray built kind of player. Nothing against any of the smaller dudes. We've seen some of these guys excel and stuff, but there's going to be so many natural things working against you where we're located: weather, field conditions. You want to talk about the winds, the rain, the snow, all that kind of stuff. You want to kind of have an ace over your sleeve that you don't have to limit a lot of what you're going to do with the playbook, because this guy can normally naturally throw 20 to 35 yards without any kind of issue in perfect conditions. But now we have, 10-mile-per-hour winds, we have rain, we have whatever. This guy can barely see over the linebackers, the offensive line. And now we have to deal with the fact that, hey, actually he's stuck to only being able to toss, 5 to 12 yards now. I don't think the Jets want a 6'1" linebacker. I don't think height matters as much with the linebackers anymore. If you can find a way to get in position, if you can get that pop and stuff, That's really all that really matters with him. And I would love the leadership and everything that he's going to bring in addition to just what he puts out there on film. I don't think you need, this Tremont Edmonds guy roaming around there. If you get him, perfect, right? But I don't think it's going to be just a common trend that that's a guy that you try to target. And it's not necessarily the caliber of guy that Aaron Glenn and them have necessarily went after either. What quarterback in next year's draft if we don't do him this year? Julian Sayin is the guy that I am hearing quite a ton of bit about. It's the guy that I think I would be most comfortable with looking at right now. But then you also talk about Arch, him coming out. It's going to be like 4 or 5 guys that I think are going to be in rotation for that pick. But Julian Sayin, I think, is the guy that everybody is going to be head over heels for. He's also going to be extremely young. I believe he's only turning 21 next year around the draft or somewhere in that realm. And coming from Ohio State, right? Obviously, he's going to get all the press run and all that. The of it is transferring and getting the bag. He won't be declaring. Awesome. Pick the safety, Halsey or Dillon. Maiava should be available in the 4th. Yeah, for our purposes, we only have the 2 rounds here, right? I think if we extended this out, it'd be an easier conversation. Love saying and becoming a big fan of Carr. Still Manning goes first in the 2027 draft. Isn't Carr like a freshman this year or something like that, if I remember? I think I'm thinking of somebody else. I had just watched the NFLSC podcast again this week, so I might be mixing names up, but Parcells always said drafted 3rd year starting QB. That's getting harder to find in the mode of like him being a program guy anyways, right? You might get a guy that started here, and here, but I those guys are so tough to kind of evaluate and really get a good feel for. Who's the kid from Nebraska? The Mahomes wannabe. Nebraska. I don't even you talk about a UDFA guy or somebody? I don't maybe you mean Oklahoma. John Mateer is the one that I kept seeing compared to him, but I don't know. Alabama quarterback Simpson next year. No, I think Ty Simpson's coming out this year, buddy. The kid from Washington Huskies is good. Maybe that's a next year guy too. Raiola's transferring to follow his. It's going to be a brutal offseason, I could tell. Okay. If it's me right now, I think Jaden Maiava kind of has to be the guy. I love my dude from Rutgers. Trinidad Chambliss is another guy that I keep hearing about. But I'm not going to love the smaller build. Diego Pavia small. Nico, I just don't even like the way that he went about handling things, which tells me his camp won't be great for him coming into the league. Yeah, I don't think I could wait. When I get more research done on this draft class, I'll be able to better figure out what I want to do. But I would say currently Jaden Maiava would have to be the guy. Now, is Halsey still actually on the board? He is. So to me, this would be between either Maiava or it would be Halsey. Now, I will have spent 3 picks with 4 of our top premium picks on defensive players in this draft so far. And we'll have walked away with no quarterback. Obviously, again, this is only a 2-rounder, but no quarterback. No additions to the interior offensive line. This is about building the team, though, man. I don't think I would be as hung up on where the picks have been distributed to, as long as the players are going to be impactful. But I do want someone, because I would expect a quarterback. I would expect a quarterback to go, if we're going to take one, by the end of the second round. Because what do you do if not? If you go into the offseason, maybe you bring Tyrod back, maybe you bring another veteran, and then what? You try to use Brady Cook as, I guess, the developmental guy once again. Nebraska got dog walked today. Pavia's 5'11", a little short, but the Vikings had a short quarterback who's in the Hall of Fame and targeting. Yeah, but these are like one-off situations, right? And again, I don't like the whole point around the quarterback conversation to me is once we get out of the first round, it doesn't matter as much, right? But you're still investing a high pick. This isn't someone that I just want you to, let fall into the river and flood into the ocean. I would want us to actually make a significant attempt to try to build around these guys. Yeah, like I don't want to be in a situation with like the Saints or even the Browns, etc. But like I've spent a premium asset on a quarterback. And again, it's the most important position. So however you need to find the guy, right? But when it comes to the management of the resources, again, I would hate to kind of have a Tyler Shook, and then I'm immediately after one season saying, this absolutely isn't the guy. And maybe not because he's been a terrible quarterback. He just hasn't looked like a franchise guy out the gate, right? I would hate for that to be the case when we could have waited another year or two, built around him, and kind of see them realize their potential, and then you figure out where they fall at. Go Iowa. Yeah, him. I just hate that he's a Lord. Just have $200 million in free agency too. Okay, I was going to say, what are we talking about here? The Jets are going to be reckless spenders. I don't think that's going to be the case. He has a lot of work to do. He wasn't really good this year. He has upside though. Drew Mestamaker. A quarterback will come in the later round. Just need supporting players. Just try taking a quarterback without supporting players. Yeah, but like you're not taking a tight end right now, right? You could try to build up the interior of the offensive line, and we're set at wide receiver now. And I don't think you're still looking at investing in running back this early. So like theoretically, you built up the offense, at least at this point going into the draft, as much as you're going to, aside from whatever you've done in free agency. So it almost feels like you can try to just focus on defense and quarterback here. What would you do? Would I trade to get a Tanner McKee? I don't necessarily know what I got with him, but I liked what I've seen. I keep a Tyrod Taylor, or I get a Jameis Winston or someone like that, and then I have Brady Cook. Would that be enough to keep me from drafting a quarterback until day 3? Maybe. It just might. Even if I didn't get a Tanner McKee, I would hate to rely on like 2 veterans per se. But if you sold me on Tanner McKee, a Jameis Winston, Tyrod Taylor, Jacoby Brissett type, and then Brady Cook, I could say I could win with these guys, this room. I'm still developing someone who, even if Brady Cook ends up being a backup for us long term, that's a win. And it still gives me the option to go into 2027 saying I need a quarterback, or if Tanner McKee looks really, really good, then I'm lit. I get to go in and I get to try to get all these blue chip guys to continue building the roster. I don't think I'm taking quarterback here. I'm going AJ Halsey. Definitely not what I expected going into this. Estimaker will be the darling in the portal. Curious if he follows his coach to okay or goes big program hunting. Mendoza goes against the powerful 2-9 Purdue today. Another Mickey Mouse team. Look it up, 200 million. 100 million in cap space. Georgia and Georgia Tech. Yeah, I don't know where 200 million is coming from. That sounds like a crazy number to me. What is this? Oh, got you. So we get a B overall. Ruben Bain, obviously our top ranked. They didn't necessarily love Chris Bell, but who? So Denzel Boston was already off the board, right? And so unless they liked someone like a KJ Concepcion better, yeah, unless they liked a Casey Concepcion better or something like that, I'm not mad at this pick. I don't know if Bart Scott would be the guy I would be trusting for numbers. Plus, we hear people make mistakes all the time, but yeah. This is the draft class, though, folks. I'm surprised that it went defensive heavy, but if I'm actually thinking about this, we keep talking about we need to kind of build up and rebuild this offense, right? But what do you legitimately need depending on how much you trust this staff? And then, by the way, I'm going to get out of here. I'm just kind of summarizing the thought process. We need a quarterback of the future. The running back room you should still feel good about, right? I think Braylon Allen was a guy that people still felt high on prior to the injury. Isaiah Davis forever has my love. If we can continue to utilize him the right way, depending on what happens with Breece Hall, then yeah, maybe you need to start looking at something in round 2 there. And then you can still figure out most of the offensive line, whether it's whatever you want to do with Joe Tippmann, keeping one or both of John Simpson and AVT. And then you essentially have the same offensive line that you were planning to have anyways, which is good. And then you could try to add to it later in this draft. And then wide receiver, if you want to pick up one in free agency, depending on who's available, you don't necessarily need to go and get you a Jordan Tyson or somebody early. Because what I envision is you're going to have Garrett Wilson at 1. You're going to have, let's say, enter free agent or draft pick at number 2. Then you're going to have John Mechie at 3 potentially. You're going to have Adonai Mitchell at 4, Arian Smith at 5, and then whatever UDFA, someone like that ends up rounding out the 6th spot for special teams, right? And then at tight end, maybe you want to make a significant investment there. But if we don't trade back and somehow happen to have the Kenyon Sadiq conversation, you're not really looking to get anybody you get until like the 3rd or 4th round. So theoretically, there's not a ton of work we need to do on the offensive side. It's the fact that it's going to be hard to nail the right kind of players, right? And it starts with the quarterback. Otherwise, you probably can spend a lot of these resources trying to rebuild this defense and not run into the same situation you're running into now. But again, I think this all flips its head based on what we feel about the quarterbacks. We'll see. Let me know what you guys think, though. I have a B overall from PFF, which, by the way, I got a B overall from PFF. See, they know Chris Bell prevents you from drafting. Again, if it's me, that doesn't prevent me in any way. Personally, if I want Jeremiah Smith and he's available to me, I'm going to get him. But that's just me. Um, yeah, that's just me personally. I'm getting elite talent. Georgia Tech's quarterback is not. Yeah, I don't. These like triple option offenses and stuff. I'm not trusting anybody from there. Not before round 5. Haynes King is 6'3", 215. Could put on some weight. Yeah, I guess. Very curious where Coleman transfers. Yeah, this will be. Now I'm kind of getting excited. So has better than a 70% completion percentage. Yeah, stuff like that can get stuff like that. It's hard to trust stats these days, especially at the college level, right? I think Haynes King is the guy that I kept hearing people compare to putting in like a Taysom Hill role. Um, I don't know if Taysom Hill is the guy anybody should be getting compared to, but yeah, this will be fun. I actually can't wait to do a legitimate kind of like full mock draft with trades. And we'll see how this pans out. All right, my throat's starting to hurt though. I do need to finish up a couple of projects here as well. I appreciate you guys coming to kick it with me though. It's always fun, especially when I get a chance to, run through something like this on a lunch break or I get extended time. Kids aren't beating down my back about doing things. This is always fire. I will also promise to try to do a better job of notifying everyone when I actually have a live stream coming up. But I also am going to find a way to start getting some of you guys on the live stream with me. We're going to start talking through this in real time. And we'll start seeing, where things may be going wrong. Um, you guys tend to have awesome points that need to be considered as well. And if anything, we have the best community. We have the most knowledgeable draft community that's out there. I got to start getting some of you guys' thoughts on display, and having some fun with a lot of this too, making this more interactive. So I appreciate you guys. Again, thanks for coming out. I will catch you guys again. I'm going to try to aim for another live stream in the next week or two. I'm going to start doing these at least twice a month anyways, not mock draft specifically, but I'm going to start trying to do live streams twice a month since I launched my memberships. And I definitely owe them some content. So be on the lookout for that. Otherwise, though, appreciate you guys as always. Peace.